Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you how I started off with one sketch and changed it into this. I have this old sketch in this sketchbook that I think I can improve quite a bit on. Now that I look at it, I really think it has a lot of potential, and I wanted to take you along with me as I improve this sketch. So here it is. Nothing crazy, just she looks kind of like Joan of Arc a little. Not that wasn't really my intention, but she looks cool, and I really think I can push her pose a lot better, make her a little bit more interesting, and so yeah, I'm going to show you how I would personally approach this drawing and make it look a lot better. I'm going to talk a little bit about proportion, line of action, and using diagonals to push the pose and give the pose more energy and excitement and stuff. So for this video, I'm going to be scanning in this drawing and putting on to Procreate. And then I'm going to be basically critiquing my own work and making live comments as I'm drawing and figuring it out, and explain what's going on in my head as I'm making these decisions to improve the design of the sketch. And I'm excited to see what I can come up with to improve this drawing. So yeah, let's get into it. I want to start writing down some notes and observations about this pose I think I could do better and fix, and then explain it to you guys. The first one is that I think her expression is a little too generic. It's very hard to tell what she's feeling or how she's emoting. The number one thing you want to do when you're designing a character is make it very clear to the audience what this character is about. What kind of story are you trying to tell through your characters? And a big one is their expressions, how they're feeling. And right now she's just kind of looking off into the distance. She's not exactly telling me anything. Another one is creating more movement in the hair. The only amount of movement I see here is this ribbon. Why is it only the ribbon that's flowing in the wind, right? I think her hair should be flowing in the wind as well. It'll create more interesting movement and shape to this. Next is a very obvious one is that her arm is a little way too big right now. It's very long, and it also interferes with her back leg here. Creates a very vague spot in her silhouette. So yeah, it's hard to tell like what's going on right here. What is this, kind of just disappears there, and it can be a little misleading. And lastly, I can tell I was trying to create some form of directional pull towards her hand here, because there's supposed to be a sword. There's not really a real clear indication of where she's carrying her weight and where I want the eye to be led. What I mean is, I want the eye to be led in this direction, right? Towards her hand where the sword is. But there's not a lot of angles telling my eye to move in that direction. There's a lot of straight lines here. So there's one right here going up, right, towards her face, right? But then this is going down, and then this is going outward. And you can kind of see where there's a lot of misdirection on where I want the eye to go. And what I really want to do is create angles that go towards, a certain part that I want the eye to go to. I want her leaning more towards the right and creating more power and energy towards that direction, this direction. Because right now she's pretty up and down, and I want her more in a diagonal. So that's something I'm going to improve on her pose. So yeah, these are just some notes explaining what I see, and I hope that makes sense to you guys. So I'm going to be breaking this up into two parts. I want to focus on improving her proportions and make her a little bit more interesting to look at, make her feel a little bit more balanced. And then I'm going to see if I can make her pose a lot more dynamic and interesting, create more of a story of what this character is doing, because right now she's just standing here, and I think it could be a lot better. So yeah, we're going to get into that next. All right, so one of the best ways to create an appealing character is to push your proportions. So proportion is basically the relationship between things. Think how big or small something is, how much space one character takes up, how tall or short or wide or thin their body parts are. If things are too symmetrical or samey, it can feel kind of boring or uninteresting. So a great way to figure out your proportions is to use rhythm and patterns. What I mean by rhythm and patterns is basically the repetition or variation within different visual elements of your design. This could be colors or shapes or lines, textures that create a sense of flow and movement in your character. Different kind of patterns you can find could be wide, narrow, wide, narrow. It could be light or dark, be tall, short, tall, short. Things that are consistently repeating within the design that creates balance. So in the green areas is where I want her, small head, big shoulders, small waist, big thighs, small knees, big calves, and so on. So she'll have small feet probably. And the same thing for her arms. Big biceps and small elbows. So that you can see how there's a consistency within this like pattern of this character, like within her proportions. Sorry if you hear my cat in the background. It could be small head, small, big, small, big, small, big. And this repetition helps create balance within your proportions. It helps make it feel more intentional. And intention is very important when you want to make an appealing character, because you have to want to push certain parts of the body in order to tell a story. So for my character, I want her to feel very strong and imposing, right? I made her shoulders very large to allude to that little hint that people will pick up on, that like, oh, she's very strong, she's these very big shoulders. And same for her arms and legs. I want her to have pretty big thighs because she's very strong and muscular. She's very tall. And I also want to maintain this triangle shape here because shape often helps show personality. I want her to feel very sharp and dangerous. And this shape also makes her silhouette really stand out as well. And I want to continue creating these triangles in her legs here and so on. Again, going back into the repetition part, like those patterns are repeating themselves so that makes sense and it's easy to pick up on, and overall make this a character feel more intentional, balanced, and appealing. So let's see if we can improve these proportions a little bit. I can probably make her hips a lot smaller. It could be a little bit more obvious that the small, big is there, because right now it's not that obvious. Same for her knees. I would make her knees a lot smaller. Just gonna use transform tool. It's gonna be rough, but I'm gonna fix it up later. But I'm gonna shrink up her hips a little. You can see how that immediately like helps accentuate that pattern again of like small, big, small, big, small, big, and it makes it just a little bit more interesting. And I make her arms or her legs a little bit thicker. I don't want her knees to be smaller. And then again with her calves. See, now she feels very buff. She kind of looks like Hercules. So yeah, you see that how that immediately just made her a lot more buffer looking and more interesting. A couple of things I like to keep in mind when I'm posing a character is finding my anchor points, twisting the body, and establishing line of action. So the body has like key anchor points. Key anchor points are like the shoulders, basically. The hips are another one. The head. These are things that you can twist and move and turn around and put in perspective, so that the character just feels a little bit more dynamic and interesting. Instead of just straight on, you could do like a shoulder coming forward and going this way, and then the other leg is going that way, and then the back leg is like this. It helps it just looks so much more interesting and fun, and it tells the audience what this character is all about and what they're feeling and stuff. So, and also establishing line of action. That's another one I always try to do. I always think of like mermaids. Mermaids are a really great idea of line of action. You could just do like a swirl, right, like this, and then just add a head, a torso, some arms, and then just a giant fishtail, and you have that line of action. It's basically just the flow of the body that helps lead the eyeball from one part of the pose to another part of the pose. Or so for her line of action, it's really just this. It's there, it's leaning, it's not that dynamic, and I think I could push it a lot better. And again, I really want to have the center focus be the direction of the eye. I want it to go this way, but right now it's going this way, and I mean it's just not as clear, and I think there needs to be more movement. For a better line of action, I'd want it like this, really exaggerate that line of action to give it just so much more oomph. First thing I would want to do is I would want to change up her arms, because right now her arms aren't really giving anything. So I put my sketch back up on here because I wanted I forgot that I did that, so I want to put that back on and go back to that line of action I was talking about. Okay, I want to move her arms, and I also want to move where her sword is, because I keep forgetting that I had a sword here. Like, it just feels too far away from her body, and I think it could intersect with her body a lot better. Have it go across her like this to, again, enforce that diagonal. Like, where I want the eye to go here, right? So I want more diagonals pointing to that direction. And a really big one could be the sword, because that would immediately lead you up there, because it's probably like gonna be pretty obvious. So let's pretend that's the sword, and that's gonna help me figure out where I want her arms to go if I already know where the sword is. Okay, so let's get rid of her arms real quick. So I want her hand to be here, like she's holding the sword. It's going to create this loopy feeling here. Loopy feeling. Gonna open her, like lift her elbow up towards the eye, kind of gauge. I already know where the hand is, so I'm really just trying to connect it now with her rest of her body. I'm thinking that like, let's say like our hand is right here, like she is swiping the sword, so she's about to. And it's gonna be some foreshortening, right? Because she's gonna go back to the twist. I want her body, like I'm thinking about her body twisting this like this, like she's turning this arm back more and this one forward, because she's about to thrust all this momentum this way, because she's about to swing. So that's what I'm thinking, why I'm putting this arm right in more of like a foreshortened angle, so it makes it look like her elbow is going behind her a little bit, and it also opens up the silhouette here. And again, I'm like establishing these diagonals, going back to the diagonals again. So diagonal here, another diagonal this way with her elbow pointing. Her arm is pointing this way. See how all these like diagonals are being a little bit more consistent than what the old one looked like? And then so like let's say like we have all these diagonals, right? So like what if we want to counteract that and create more energy within her hair? Because right now the only thing that's moving behind her is her hair, these ribbons. And like if she's putting all this energy outward towards the eyeball here, there needs to be like counter energy. And a good way to do that is to show her hair like being pushed back against that force. So I'd want the hair to be like outward. I'll be putting pushed back like that. Wind is in her hair, and she's so just and then you know the ribbons can keep going that way. Okay, so let's go a little bit about her expression, because again I remember I brought up that she doesn't really look like she's feeling anything. We can't really pick up on how she's feeling. I want her to feel determined, like she's about to slay a bad guy. So I think having her head tilted down a little bit would help show that she's like really determined. All I need to do really is like make her angry, you know, be like she's defending her turf. She's ready to go into battle. She should be like looking a little bit more fierce. Chin is a little too long. Yeah, like see how like easy that is? Like how eyebrows are so powerful. They can change so much about how the character is feeling by just changing the eyebrows. So like look at that. She looks like so much. You can kind of pick up already that she's feeling like angry or determined. She's about to use this sword and like slice some guys, you know? I mean, like fix up the sword a little bit so it can like be a little bit more obvious. So I'm gonna looking at her anchor points again. So I remember I mentioned counter balance. So she has her shoulders like this, right? And then her hips are countering. I think that I can make her legs a little bit more interesting, because right now again like there's so much energy in her arms, but her legs don't really have a lot going. They're again just kind of standing here, and I think that I can open them up more and create a little bit more energy. What I mean by that is like I think I can like lift her hip up a little bit more like this. I think I can bring her leg back more, and then this down a little bit. It's like I want her hip to be a little bit more forward here. If I put that in like a box, and then this box is like that. Does that make sense? Well, this angle's like this. You know, like different kind of angles that create a little bit more interest. So I think I'm gonna do that. And again, that'll help with like interfering with the sword a little bit too. Opens this area up here. keeps that negative space open. Bring that knee in a little bit, just a little, and then out again. She's putting all this power, like a lot of her power is coming from this back leg because she's pushing forward with this leg, and all that energy is coming out this way with her in her this arm with this elbow. So yeah, that already immediately looks a little bit more interesting. And then again, I'm talking about, and like, see how that twist just creates a little bit more interesting angles. All right. So here's after all my edits on the pose and stuff. And then here's the old one, or the original. So original, new, original, new. Wow, it's insane how much different that like feels, you know? All right, so I'm going to move on to creating the final sketch of this illustration, just so you guys can see the full process from start to finish. So that's all I have for you today. I hope that this was interesting and you maybe learned a little bit about dynamic posing and using line of action in your drawings. And I certainly did. I definitely feel like I pushed myself a little bit more and took advantage of this little drawing that really I didn't really put too much thought into. Took that drawing and then made something a lot more interesting and dynamic. And yeah, so thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.